Hi, here to talk about tabs, accordions, and accessibility. My name is Andrew Ortolano. I'm the lead developer in an agency called Lippman Hearn. My team recently developed a WordPress theme for Northern Arizona University, and the page templates included tabs and accordions. So there were two big criteria that we needed to pass for our site to be accepted by NAU. WCAG 2.0 AA automated testing and practical screen reader testing. Web content accessibility guidelines defined how to make web content available to people with a broad range of visual and physical abilities. WCAG automated testing, in our experience, will spot issues related to the readability of text and the proper captioning of images. This is important because did we all catch Jeremy Feld's presentation yesterday? We talked about WSU being hit with an OCR. Right, so that's the stick. The carrot is if you follow these guidelines, your content reaches more people, which the folks in enrollment and marketing can certainly get behind. The second piece that we had to pass, screen readers. So there are a couple. There's VoiceOver for the Mac. The big one is JAWS for Windows. This is the software that many of your screen reader audience is using, and what we found practically because of university and professional support for it was that if your site doesn't pass JAWS, it doesn't pass screen reader. And here's where we ran into trouble. It's totally possible to pass WCAG automated testing and completely fail screen reader testing. Why is this? So the first challenge is hidden content. Screen readers, in our experience, will try their best to emulate the intended experience. So if you have content that is set to display none, visibility hidden, the screen readers will ignore it. And as you can see, in a tab control, 3/4 of our content is currently hidden. And the screen readers will ignore it, and the WCAG testing tools won't flag you for this. Second big challenge is the order of content of tabs. Accordions are not that bad. Ideally, you have groupings of headers and content blocks, but with a tab, there is no sequential relationship between the tab labels and their content. You can see here we have a bulleted list of links and then panels of content below them. The third big challenge that we ran into was screen reader testing. Frankly, just finding the existence of issues in screen readers was an enormous challenge for my team because none of us are experts in using screen readers. How many people are? Right. So if you aren't, learning to use one is really hard, and the people who use them very fluently. I totally recommend, if you aren't an expert, hire an expert. We hired an agency called Ultra Testing, and they assigned us a tester who specializes in JAWS. He wrote brilliant tickets. He saved us hours and hours. It's great working with them. So where does this leave us? There's a huge overlap between the requirements for keyboard navigation and screen reader accessibility. If you can tab through your entire page, you're in pretty good shape for screen reader compliance. So we spent a lot of time doing screen reader testing, just tabbing and arrowing through the pages. As for screen readers, like I said, we hired a specialist. So where do you start? jQuery UI is actually a really good starting point. It has a few key advantages. For one, it wants your HTML to be clean and semantic. Your tabs should be a bulleted list of links to content panels on the page. Your accordions should be alternating headers and content panels. They're both keyboard navigable, but we found that they practically, they failed JAWS testing. California State University has a whole website dedicated to accessibility. It's fantastic. You should totally check it out. And they have downloads to documents that describe how to get complicated controls past their own internal testing. They have a document on accordions. They don't have one on tabs, but it got us thinking in the right direction. And I want to address Bootstrap because it's such a popular framework and there are lots of great things about it, but it failed JAWS testing miserably, and it was not a good starting point for our team. So My favorite approach, my first approach, is always to destroy the element. jQuery UI offers a destroy method. When you run it against your tabs and accordions, it removes all of the handler code around them, and you're left with the HTML that you wrote in the first place, which should be semantic, and mainly there's no hidden content. Everything is exposed. Moving on to sort of building on that, if you let your visitors save a preference that they want to use your site in enhanced usability mode, it'll destroy the accordions, or you can prevent them from being invoked in the first place. Everybody wins. Everybody gets to use your site the way they want to. It's totally accessible, and it's very fast to implement. And a tab, if you think about it, is a visual metaphor for the organization of chunks of content. If your users have never seen one, if they find them difficult to manipulate in physical space, I don't know that I see the sense in burning dozens of hours trying to bring that metaphor across. So destroying the element should be considered an option. But your stakeholders may decide that a more robust solution is required. So let's move on. If you want to make your tabs and accordions accessible, our ideal solution affords us spoken instructions, keyboard navigation, and obvious focus indication. So we started with the jQuery UI tab control and then added in helper features from the Cal State accordion. We wrapped the entire element in a div and added a span tag with the class instructions immediately inside of that. Now, remember, JAWS will ignore hidden content, but it will not ignore clipped content. So that instruction span gets clipped to be a single pixel in dimension, and then when your user tabs to the control, that instruction will be read aloud. Then we needed to add in some extra handling based on keyboard input. jQuery UI handles the actual hiding, showing, and state setting pretty well, but it didn't actually move keyboard focus, which is a crucial indicator of where you are on the page. Remember, the solution isn't just for users who get zero visual input. Lots of people use assistive technology, and obvious keyboard focus is vital for those users. Designers hate it because it looks like this, but if you want an accessible experience, fight for it. Moving from tab to content. In our practical testing, keyboard focus didn't move correctly from the tab to the associated content. Our solution involved placing a clipped H4, which you can see called out in that inspector block there. We gave it a negative tab index, which removed it from the tab index flow, but allowed us to programmatically force focus on it when the user tabbed to a tab and then hit their space bar. And this way, and these are all instructions that are provided in that instruction panel, this way we were able to provide a method for users to tab through the tabs, use their spacebar to jump down into them, move back up into the control, and out of the tab completely. We avoid the keyboard trap. Keeping tab focus. So finally, we needed to address the tab index of the tabs themselves. jQuery UI's default behavior is to set the inactive tabs tab index to -1, but this removes them from the document flow. They still perform, but things get really weird when you try to move backwards through them, and especially if you try to move past the control and then back up into it. We resolve those inconsistencies by forcing the tabs to always have a tab index of 0, which keeps them in the tab index flow of the document. Accordions were a lot simpler. Again, we needed to append spoken instructions to manage the tab index of our controls, but because they were already sequential, they required a lot less helper code. And finally, getting it into WordPress was the easy part. We did this all with advanced custom fields repeater. It's a pretty simple set of fields, a tab layout, or a tab label, a layout selector, so you can do 1 or 2 columns, and 1 or 2 WYSIWYG editors based on your choice of layout. So, thank you. If I have a closing thought, it's this. This is not a perfect solution. This got our site past practical testing at the end of last year. I hope someone takes this and builds on it and kicks my ass next year. Do I have time for a question? Are there any questions? Yeah.
One just comment. You might need to repeat it, but if you are having trouble figuring out screen readers, your local public library may have somebody who's been trained in using screen readers to help anyone in your area who needs them.
All right.
And they may have software that you can go test, and you might be able to get a librarian to help you learn it, or find people who could do user testing for you.
The comment was, if you're having trouble finding a screen reader expert, consult your local public library. They may have an expert they can lend you.
Or people that would be willing to do user testing for pay.
Or people who you can pay for user testing. Non-volunteers. The other kind of help. Or university libraries. Sorry, I keep forgetting to repeat things. University libraries.
I love the image on the website.
Thank you.
That's great.
Anything else? All right, next up.
Love that.